Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Terrace Podcast. I am your host Craig Fowler, and on this occasion I am joined by a fellow Scottish football supporter whose club are in a kind of mini crisis at the moment, and that's going to be the theme, at least in the first half of today's episode, the Scottish Premiership clubs in a bit of crisis. And of course I am joined by Hibs supporter Tony Anderson. Hello Tony.
Hi mate, you alright?
Yeah, I'm alright. Incredibly, despite both our terrible starts to the season and despite all the fun things that happened to Hibs, as a Hearts fan, I think we're in a bigger crisis at this point in time.
Yeah, I love how we're doing all that. The first half of a show about teams in crisis, 2nd of September, and in the sort of like wider Scottish football, 2 managers are already gone. What a world.
True to form of Scottish football.
Exactly. I can see why, man. Any manager or any player who gets offered a long contract, you'd be off your fucking rocker not to just sign it there and then. Just every time. Sign every single contract that comes near you. Because you'll get binned. You will get binned.
I was actually thinking that because Kettlewell and Stevie Frail signed new contracts a Motherwell recently.
And they decided to tell everyone this time.
Yeah, I decided to tell everyone this time. But I only saw the Twitter graphics. I didn't realise the details. And it was when I was watching Sports Scene last night in preparation for this that I learned there were rolling contracts. And it just got me thinking, why doesn't every club just insist on this for every manager? I know that Celtic have done that for a number of years. So why does every club not just be like, right, nah, you're just getting a rolling contract, that's it? Because you may as well do that because, immediately, Hearts only gave new deals to the management team, was it last month? Maybe late July? And already that looks like a mistake.
And you said that, just with chatting on WhatsApp, you said an interesting thing about how Scottish football, the sort of bigger clubs, Aberdeen's, Hibs and Hearts, they've sort of went into a more expensive market for players. Not that they're necessarily doing that well certainly not over the 3 or 4 years that they've been doing it again. But no one seems to have went really into a different market for managers. And maybe that would be the thing that would allow you to, because if everyone was doing, if worldwide everyone was just doing rolling contracts, and then when you wanted to give, all right, I really fancy this guy, this is how we move into another market. You know, it's like giving a player, it's like Dundee giving Simon Murray a 3-year deal. That was like, we're really backing you, come and join us. You'll be our main man, despite the fact your legs will have fallen off halfway through that contract. And you could do the same with managers because you know that obviously it's like a way of showing that you're backing them, a way of getting them on board.
Well, we should probably start with the club that's in certainly the biggest amount of crisis, but certainly the one that's got fans outside the stadium shouting abuse, booing and having heated arguments with the manager. It's of course Rangers, who lost the first Old Firm game of the season, 3-0 to Celtic. Daisen Maeda, Kyogo Furuhashi and Callum McGregor were the goals for Celtic. A very comfortable victory by the end of that one. But we should actually shall we start with the positives or let's be more fun about it. Let's start with the negatives. Let's start a bit Rangers and Philippe Clement, because after the match, Celtic were 2-0 up at half-time. So when we talk about the game, I didn't manage to catch the first half, so I turned it on at half-time, or saw it was already 2-0, knew exactly what was going to happen the rest of the game. So I wasn't exactly in full concentration, kind of work mode for the rest of that fixture. So I'll go to you for kind of what happened during the match and how it kind of got away for Rangers. But I did see the quotes afterwards from Philippe Clement, where he was saying that it's always good when a manager on a losing team, especially when you've lost 3-0. The most important stat of all, how many goals did you score and how many goals did the opposition score? And if there's more than one in it, whatever you say is really going to be a comment that's just going to come across. Especially in a derby. It's just going to come across as so hollow and fans are just not going to buy into it. So he said Celtic had 14 shots and we had 13. They had 4 on target, we had 4 on target. Ball possession was equal today between the two teams. He basically says the difference between them was efficiency. So, Tony, he also said, quite hilariously, that they were coming off the back of their best result in 4 years by beating Ross County 6-0 last weekend.
I absolutely loved that, because I think it was 2 years ago they went to Germany and put 4 past Borussia Dortmund. That's absolutely, fucking mad. It's just mad as a box of frogs, is a claim. What the fuck are you talking about? It's a routine win against Ross County. Ross County get pumped at Ibrox every single time, every single game. They don't beat them 5-0 last season. Or the Ross County goalkeeper made 5 billion saves.
Yeah, it was only made like 20 saves, the goalie. Right. So there's is there even a kernel of a truth here in what Clement said, or is it just absolute deflection pish?
I think the only part that there's maybe he mentions the sort of Dessers and Matondo chance, but he also seems to forget that Dessers one was offside.
And it looked like, by the way, it looked like for the replay that Matondo would have been as well.
Yeah, so I mean, again, this is like the desperation stuff. And this is what's quite funny about the whole thing in general, is that you expect managers probably, some have done it publicly, others probably might do it privately, probably moan about how football fans are too basic, too simplistic about things, and they just look into the stats so they don't win a game. But then the manager, when he's under pressure, sort of reverts to casual football fandom chat like that, and it's like it's like who you try to pull the wool over the eyes here. That you've got guys who pay money to come and see you every single week, especially Rangers, who won't. The only time they've barely never won a game, ever lost a game in Scotland with other teams have more shots than them. Because they know it's not as simple as that. It's just not how football works. And go to that and like ignoring the fact that it was fucking 2-0 at half time. So even if you have a couple of more shots on target in the second half, one of them's in like the 93rd minute when they're 3-0 down. We can see that. We can see that, Phil. And it's just mad that he's got to like, he comes across like a really strong character when he comes in. He's like, obviously comes in with a logo that's confident beyond belief right away, and obviously he's doing all the gym stuff, and so that's obviously telling you that this is a guy that really wants to be taken seriously. A massive guy, bald head, imposing figure. But the second anything goes wrong, he reverts to like really, really childish and really can't he take it at all. He's got like he seems really thin-skinned, which maybe again is why you have a logo and you put pictures of you in the gym all the time. You're maybe overcompensating for something. I don't know, but he just really it seems bizarre that a guy like that is Rangers manager. It doesn't suit at all, and it really worries me because I think he's a really competent manager. I still think he's a good manager despite some of these bad results. But they've given the 4-year deal, and I thought that would maybe settle him a bit and not worrying. Maybe he's got a bit of backing, but like one game and like he's fucking lost the plot. He's absolutely lost it. I suppose that's what happens when you get screamed at outside your work straight after. I suppose you might react a bit differently. I suppose
that was quite real kind of heads gone moment stuff from the Rangers fans, and I get the. Obviously, you can get the frustration, but it's very much taking it out on the wrong people. Like I don't think Philippe Clement's very good. That has to be said, but you have to have a degree of sympathy for the situation that he's been dealt. And it's the same with the players, like they're shouting at Tavernier for being like a loser and all that. We've talked about this before. Well, Tavernier's now getting over the hill, and it should have been sold in the summer. Rangers were unable to sell him. Not entirely Tavernier's fault. I mean, there's always things that players can do to push their move, but if he doesn't want to play in Turkey where he, will get promised fortunes of money and probably won't be paid for several months, and that's completely up to him. It's not his fault that you gave him a new contract whenever the last one was.
Stevie Mallon's still looking for money for the last time he was there, I think.
Yeah, but this is what happens in football. Like the board hide behind the kind of their basic anonymity, and it's the players and managers that take the brunt. But he also, Clement also was saying, we had the better of the early going, and I've watched the highlights, as you say. They had those two chances, both of which would have been called back for offside. But even before Celtic scored, they had the goal disallowed. That was very, very narrow, which was down to some shit Rangers defending, and then they conceded a goal not long after due to shit Rangers defending.
And again, if you're a Rangers fans, probably they know better as well than when he says, because again, they'll have played so many games against weaker opposition when they quote-unquote start well. All right? I mean, they will have done that, and then within 7 minutes, they break up, create two chances, and it's 2-0 at half-time. They'll have seen that video almost 98% of their time supporting Rangers. So when that's twisted on them, they're not fucking idiots. They know they're not really. It just means that, you start fast, you're feeling fit, you've just came out of the dressing room, you've got your backs against the wall, you're going into war with no fans, you're going to start sort of like feisty. It's almost a guarantee that Rangers are going to start in that fashion. But then, like you say, the minute Celtic managed to sort of get over the halfway line, they obviously the game plan of the guys on the left-hand side of that Rangers defence, they don't look that good, by the way. and then getting out to sort of Johnson and Kuhn and letting them with the midfield as well, and letting the little triangle passes through there where Johnson just got to the byline all day long and Kuhn was able just to drift in field and cause absolute havoc. You could see that's the game there. That's where the game's won and lost there. And Celtic are just, I think we spoke about this before, you can't really name a Rangers player that's getting into the Celtic team. And then you're thinking there's squad members at Celtic could possibly be one of Rangers' best players.
Well, I think you could actually put Paulo Bernardo as a good example of that. When O'Reilly's still there, he's the kind of first reserve, but when it comes to the big games, he's going to be the odd man out. He's not starting in that three, and he comes in and he's great in this game for the first half. I thought his passing was maybe a bit. I went back and watched him. I didn't watch the game, but I watched him because I heard Celtic fans raving about him. I did think his passing in the early going was a wee bit off, but he certainly settled into it, and you can see the kind of full package he brings in terms of how much he works. His obvious technique, the fact you can see it when he had that chance that he basically created for himself, that he's got the ability to get in the box and score goals as well. He's kind of another one of these Celtic midfielders that can do a little bit of absolutely everything. But that just shows you the kind of depth and the quality they've got in reserve, that he was their fourth choice centre midfielder. One goes and he just slots right in and everything's fine. And on the other hand, Rangers, like we talk about Matondo and Dessers, and these are the kind of guys that. And again, this is the point where I would say I have the sympathy for Clement, because these are not guys that he signed, and throughout his kind of tenure, Rangers have been restricted in how they can sign due to the kind of the money required to patch up Ibrox and the fact that they need to get rid of players that allow bodies to come in. So it's not really his own it's still kind of not quite got a hallmarks of being his own team, or it is, but he's not been able to spend the kind of money that Celtic have. But
yeah, the problem is that he's making his own team. It's like proper, and Jeff there, you're like, oh no.
But Dessers and Matondo are just typical of the type of guys that over the last couple of years in this fixture, you're talking about efficiency in both boxes. But these Dessers, when he's ever come up trumps in an Old Firm game? Once, maybe? He's poor in just about every one, and he's finishing goes to pot in every single one, so it's not exactly a surprise.
Yeah, he gets the Morellises about him when it's time for Celtic, and which seems to now be something for all Rangers strikers, which is the worst possible case, because we don't need you to score 4 against Ross County, mate. That's the last. We need 1 in that game.
So to focus on Celtic,
mm-hmm.
I mean, they look very hungry this season. I mean, I know this is not exactly the best of games to judge that, because they're always going to be hungry for a game against Rangers at home when Rangers don't have any fans and they can smell blood. But just overall this season, they've looked very slick. The urgency has been increased a lot. The speed of their play has been increased a lot. It's looking very Rodgers first season-esque.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're going to. It's going to be hard to beat that season on a domestic front, but with the Champions League, because that season in the Champions League they had some good games. They drew with Man City at home. They defeated Anderlecht. I think it was Anderlecht away,
mm-hmm.
but did lose at home to them and did go out of the Champions League group stages. But with the Champions League this time
Fixtures.
around. Fixtures. and them getting a good draw, there is a possibility that he could win the treble this campaign, but also actually do something in Europe.
I think they will. Now looking at it, because I think there is a bit of depth, and I like how aggressive they play. And on top of that, they got some good Champions League results. They won a home. They were really unlucky not to win 2 home games last season when they had quite a difficult group. And then this time, the way that this format is, I mean, if we're being frank, they couldn't have landed much better in the Champions League than what Celtic have sort of ended up with in the end.
Well, according to the stat, somebody crunched the numbers in terms of who's got the hardest to easiest, and apparently statistically, Celtic have the easiest draw in the entire Champions League.
Yeah, and I mean, you're looking at it's the home games especially, because Celtic normally do shit away from home anyway. But then you've got Slovan Bratislava, Club Brugge. I mean, I'm expecting Celtic to win those games. Like, no questions asked. I don't like, and if they don't, I think that's not great, and they deserve criticism for it. And then even Leipzig are a really good team, but in terms like a home game against a quote unquote bigger club from one of the big 5 leagues or whatever, you'd be nudging towards a team like Leipzig to be the ones that you would be that you'd be choosing, and then you would assume that a decent Celtic team can pick up something when you're going at your Dynamo Zagrebs and teams like this. So I would think that they've definitely got a route in to get into the playoffs and being in Europe past Christmas, which would mean ultimately that if they do that, then they have bettered Rodgers' first season. But it's just that I really enjoyed watching Celtic at a hub when, and normally Ange Postecoglou got to the stage where the brilliance had washed over me. And they were too good. They were too good, and then you stop appreciating. Because sometimes, I don't know if you do this, I like don't even compute when I see them scoring the highlights sometimes. Sometimes the players. So it's like Hatai has scored a couple of goals already. I was like, did he? Even though I've literally watched it. I've watched it. But just sometimes because Celtic, you're like, you go on to autopilot when you're watching it sometimes because you're just waiting, right? Oh, is that another goal that they scored? Oh. So, and then even the style of the goal, like it's really good, but you didn't even, if it was your team scoring, like, fucking hell, we're incredible. Oh my God. But then when they're doing it, it's like, oh, Celtic, it's just a fucking tapping, because it's them that's doing it. But this Celtic team, it looked really good. I'm really starting to warm to Kuhn. I think I thought he was really good in the first half. He was aggressive. He was on. He doesn't mind a foul either. So he's quite aggressive on the front foot. And him and Johnson, it works really well because Johnson's fit as fuck, man. He absolutely rifles down. He's a really responsible player. He's always offering for the ball. If you were playing, especially with Rodgers, he likes the wingers to be inverted and come in. So it's like Johnson's absolutely perfect for it. And him and Kuhn, they caused those two on the left-hand side. It just looked completely unfair. It looked like they were playing something else. Do you know what I mean? And that's like the worst thing I can say about Rangers. It just looked like Celtic were playing any old shite, like the usual mugs that they play it. And it was just bad. They were doing the same thing. Johnson's constantly getting out there. Hatate missed a sitter, and it looked all at sea. And even like Chris, mate ours, he just commented like the celebration didn't even look that good, and that's because it's got to the expectation mode from the fans that they're just like oh, we're humping Rangers again. Oh well, back home then. Just like when they beat one of us in a League Cup quarter final, and then like you see when you look at the Bernardo as an example, again we were talking about them having a better season. It's like Bernardo's like forward planning. It's like always knowing, and it's like because sometimes I don't like giving Celtic too much credit because I think sometimes they're like really unambitious. And like this summer, like the money's went. I'm still not sure about that's been spent with Ida, but the other midfielder, obviously, I'm just gonna have to wait till I see him play before I can comment. But Bernard, you're like, well, he's all right, and then you go for him again. You're like, oh, is it worth it? But he's already settling in. It's a foreign player coming over. He's shown that he's a good player, and it's forward planning. We'll get him in eventually. He's had time to settle. Then O'Reilly can go. You've already kind of got the replacement that you're probably going to use, and then you go and buy another. That gives the guy that you're buying for 11 million a bit of breathing space for him to get to grips with and to go well. So that rather than like sometimes, we always say, the Ange Postecoglou maybe papered over the cracks of the recruitment policy and the way that they would do it, but you're starting to see that there's forward planning. Ida as well. It's like they know he's good enough. They want him in to do it. I'm not sure, but they obviously are. And it's like try before you buy. And that seems to be working out for them. And just they'll be able to rest players when it comes to the Champions League. There'll be absolutely no issues at all. And I think they might do pretty well in the Champions League this season as well. And like you say, they've really went into the Rodgers mode. They look like a Brendan Rodgers team. And everyone's on the same page now. He's standing outside cars giving it all this. We've hit Rodgers time. We're going to have a 2-year period where all that shtick works and everyone laps it up, and then the lies will start, and then he'll angle his way out.
I said this towards the end of the last season. The turning point was when they lost Hearts at Tynecastle, and then he started being Rodgers again.
Aye, yeah, he needed that.
He was bored. He was bored before then. He was like, "Oh, I've done this before. Rangers are shite. This is." And then Rangers made it for a while. Made it look like he wasn't going to win the title, and that would have been very embarrassing. And that would have been like catastrophic
for his career.
For his career ambitions. And he's a guy that's never going to. He's not going to be a manager. Like we were talking on the chat about Derek McInnes in relation to the Hearts job and how Hearts would actually have to kind of. It wouldn't be a case of Hearts just going to Killie, like if they got rid of Naismith and saying, right, we want Derek McInnes, here's some money, welcome him in. They're going to have to give that as a sell to McInnes because he's the type of manager who from the past we've seen, is somebody that is not just about burning ambition. He wants to be in a situation that he enjoys. That's why he stuck around at Aberdeen, didn't go to Rangers, didn't go to Sunderland, and wouldn't leave Killie just for any willy-nilly job that's a bigger club. We know that Rodgers is not that kind of guy. Rodgers is the man who's going to have that ambition until he's in his 70s.
Yeah.
Until basically the world of football has told him, you can't manage teams anymore. He's still going to want to do that. Anyway, we should probably move on. We've talked about these two.
We need to mention some of the performances at Rangers just very, very quickly.
Okay.
I said you were talking about Tavernier earlier. Woof, my word. I'm a Tavernier guy, as everyone would know if they follow us. I'm a defender, but Jesus, he was fucking terrible in every facet of his game. And he was trying to come central. He's bombing into the centre of the pitch to try and do something. And fair enough, again, it's trying to take some sort of responsibility. But he was misplacing passes all over the shop, completely taken over by the atmosphere. Diamandi is a guy that we both talk about and rate. He was hopeless. Barron in that midfield role didn't break up play once in that deep line play. So it's just absolutely pointless. 0 interceptions and that. Just well, you're going to have to in that role, man. And in an Old Firm game, you're going to have to get involved and at least be tasty. You're going to have to. And he'd done none of that. He totally overwhelmed them. And then Czerny, you're just do something, mate. And then obviously you get the Matondo and that, and it's just flavour of the month on that left hand side. At Ranger, they've got all these wingers, and it's about who's looking good at this period rather than any of them. There's any sort of real faith in them.
Yeah.
So it's they've got absolutely fucking.
Oh,
Butland again. Yeah, he's so out of position for that goal, and again something we all talk about regularly. It's Dessers gets all the shit, and Butland gets all the praise, and no one's able to accept that they've absolutely swapped places in terms of their importance.
I think it's coming around now. I don't know if they're fully coming around to Dessers in the Butland role of last year, but I would see a lot of Rangers fans now being like, "No, Butland's very overrated."
And he's just so out of position there. Kyogo's clever finish, don't get me wrong, it's really clever. Yeah. He notices that, and he does great. But we couldn't let that go with 3-0 with it going through some of these fucking Humpty Dumpty performances out there.
Right, speaking of Humpty Dumpty performances, let's go to Tynecastle next, where Hearts lost 1-0 to Dundee United. The single goal coming with around about 15 minutes left through Ross Graham. A cacophony of boos when the full-time whistle went. I think there was a lot of Hearts fans probably still left in the ground only to do that and direct their ire at Stephen Naismith and the management team, as that is now 6 games in a row that Hearts have lost.
Right, Fowler, but let's obviously it's a big result for Dundee United, was it? Yes. Their first win at Tynecastle in over a decade. So, let's start with the positives at least. And what did United do that enabled them to get an unlikely result historically?
Part of it was to do with who they were playing. So I don't want to be like, I'm going to talk about United's positives and immediately go back to Hearts. But it was, Jim Goodwin said it himself after the game. He said, our plan was to sit in a low block and hit them on the counter-attack and keep play in front of us, not let them get in behind and dare Hearts to do as they've not really played at all this season, which is with some tempo and some bravery. But to be fair to United, even though I would say their host made it easy for them, they were good. They were very good defensively. They kept. They were good in 2 aspects, and these aspects can sometimes kind of contrast with each other. In that, whenever Hearts did actually threaten to either kind of putting a good ball in behind, or there was a couple of occasions where I remember one in particular where Shankland played like a reverse pass that looked like it was going to lead to something. But whenever that tended to happen, there was a Dundee United player kind of putting his body on the line, throwing himself at it, and then either blocking it or getting a deflection on it and putting out for a throw-in. So there was a lot of interruptions like that. But at the same time, they were very disciplined in their shape. throughout the entire game. They really were quite impressive working as a defensive unit, and it really was defensively that won them this game because, well, the back three were all very good. Particularly Graham. Graham was excellent, probably the best player in the park. Adebayoga was also impressive on the other side. The wing backs probably provided the best attacking outlet. Will Ferry, I said it after the...
Brilliant, man.
I said it after the Dundee game, the very first game of the season. I said he looks great. I thought he was their best player that day, and he's probably been their best player so far this season.
Every game that he plays, he's been brilliant.
But Stevenson looks good as well. He was getting forward to effect, and then you've got guys like Holt, Kevin Holt, and Craig Sibbald in the middle of the park. Holt's there as a defender, screening the defence, but he's doing a good job at it. He's looking good in the middle of the park.
It should be. That's one of those.
Yeah, it shouldn't at all.
Kevin Holt midfield. Are you good win? You're at it again. But lo and behold, maybe Goodwin's a genius now. Who knows?
And Craig Sibbald is one of these players that, like, when he first came through at Falkirk, Sibbald was really touted as going to be this kind of next big kind of playmaker, number 8, number 10, get forward, create, score. Never really happened for him, but he's reinvented himself first at Livy and now the same at Dundee United as just somebody who's still got that technical ability. He's got that cool head in possession. He can find a pass. He's not going to do much in terms of changing getting a goal, but he now just kind of works his arse off and does all the simple things well.
And he gets into the box a lot, even though, like, as you said, he doesn't score a lot. It's kind of like because he's got such a good engine, sort of similar to your own player in Devlin, where it's like he gets in there and he might not necessarily be the guy that's scoring, but because he's got that engine, he's more the numbers in there. He just causes a bit of havoc. So it's like another added attribute on top of the things that you're saying that are really handy for Dundee United. I have to say, just before you go on, the defence, obviously this game suits Dundee United's style of defenders that they have to sit in deep. But I've sort of been, in all the pods I've done, angling to it being their downfall, the style of defender that Dundee United have. I mean, I think I mentioned that we're doing my previewing with St Johnstone, thinking that their style of strikers up against your style of defence, and the fact that Dundee United will probably see more of the ball, you were like, this is where that comes unstuck. But again, they got a clean sheet in that game as well.
But you're also right, because in that match they really struggled in the first half, and St Johnstone were the better side until Dundee United opened the scoring, and then there was the red card followed that, and then it became fairly comfortable in the end. But
the gut punch, not really a gut punch, but a bit lower than that. But
that's probably that is probably their issue, and that was what I was going to come on and say, that the least impressive part of their team was the front play. Now, I don't actually include Van der Sande in this in terms of his all-round contribution, because he held the ball up very well. But I think it's clear to see that he holds the ball up very well and links with teammates, but he doesn't really do an awful lot else. It doesn't look like he's going to score many goals. He doesn't have any pace to kind of run him behind. He's not going to take the ball and dribble past somebody and make something happen out of nothing. He's very much a team player. Now, it's good to get his own team up the park, so it takes pressure off the defence, so it doesn't mean they have to just defend for 90 minutes. But in this system they've got, which is working very well for them defensively at the moment, this 3-4-3, it's probably the worst system they've got for Trapanovsky and Babinski, who are their best two attacking players in the team. Because Babinski, to me, looks like he's better as either a 10 or maybe actually like a number 8 who's just got license to go forward and make things happen. And Trapanovsky's looked at his best when he's just an out-and-out winger. Whereas as a 3-4-3, he's one of those kind of number 10s that has to kind of move inside. And it can seem easy enough. You could go, well, you've got a bit more free rein. You can go left, you can go right, you can still go out to the wing. But I've seen many players, like especially over the last few years in Scottish football, is so many clubs have fallen in love with the 3-4-3, who you think would suit that, but just don't at all. And he certainly, the two of them were their poorest players, quite comfortably, I would say.
Trapanovsky and Babinski.
Yes.
That's interesting, because obviously they're the ones exactly that we're thinking we're bringing the quality to that team.
That's a bit of a concern, I would say, because for games like the one against St Johnstone, like if this system you're playing now means that you're going to keep clean sheets when you're playing against sides at home that you think you should beat and who might be set up to stop what you're doing, then is it going to work as well? It's only a couple of games, but that would be the concern for me for United going forward. But yeah, certainly deserved this.
If you were good when, you'd be looking maybe to try and have maybe another go-to shape that you can use that can maybe bring your players out on the training pitch. But come on then, Fowler. Is Mr. Naismith already? I mean, I think that you maybe mentioned earlier he got given a new deal last month. Is he now just a dead man walking? He survived last year. He survived dead man walking last year.
He did, but it was nowhere near as bad. Last year was a bit of a perfect storm in that the style of football had changed a lot from when he first took the job on a caretaker basis. So there was kind of, including myself, kind of accusations of him being like not kind of living up to his word. There was also the fact that we considered the 2-goal lead to Hibs at Tynecastle after he'd taken off an attacking player for a defensive player. That's always going to make Hearts fans hate you. And it was also the whole farce with like Frankie McAvoy being the manager. And even though most Hearts fans knew exactly what was happening, it doesn't do your manager well for you to basically
makes him look a bit of a clown. It does. It just
not
his fault.
Officially, he doesn't have the qualifications for this job. That's not a good look. So even though results weren't great, we were still like picking up the odd ones and kind of hanging around 5th, 6th and not being too terrible, just not looking that great. And it's going to be, I mean, I don't think there's any chance. I mean, you never know in Scottish football, he might get sacked while we record this. I don't think there's any chance he's going to go right now. However, there's a kind of interesting parallel with the fact that Hearts' next game after the international break is away to Celtic. And it's probably the game away to Celtic last season that kept him in a job for a lot longer, because not only did Hearts win that game and get their first win at Celtic Park in years upon years, it was also launched Hearts, the kind of period where Hearts started to play well consistently, and that lasted for about 5 months.
Aye. Is that when you went on the 11-game winning run? Was that period?
Yeah, it was. I don't know if that was. I can't remember exactly if that's what started it. I think it might have been, but yeah, there was the lengthy undefeated run that, and I think it was kicked off by that game. But like to go back to the team now, he's going to lose. He's very likely to lose that game. Let's face it, he's going to lose that game, and then afterwards it's St Mirren away. Does he even get that match? Especially if they get absolutely annihilated at Celtic Park. And if he does, away to St Mirren, who will come on themselves, I think are going to be a better team after the international break. And you're thinking, right, does that mean he's going to get to the end of the month with Ross County? And that means that will be, by that point, Hearts will have lost, 8 games on the bounce? Quite possibly. Is he going to survive that? That really doesn't seem likely. And I don't even know as well. Because this was a game really to save it and to be like, even if like the next 2 results afterwards were poor.
Home game at Tiny. Big like aye. After some tough against a promoted team. Like it or not.
Take care of your bread and butter, then you can point to it and say, well, we drew with Rangers and we're maybe unlucky not to win that game, and then we've beaten Dundee United and we've had a lot of away games. We've had a tough start. There was Europe as well, can interrupt in things. Our away form's gone in the toilet again, but let's try and fix that. Bread and butter taken care of, it's all fine. But losing this one is just, it just points to you not being able to salvage it. And also, from watching the team, it doesn't look like he's able to salvage it, because it was just, every game he seems to be coming out and saying, we need to be braver on the ball. We need to stop passing it backwards. Players need to take chances. We need to be on the front foot. We need to be aggressive. And every single game, you don't see it. You see play that's far too laborious, players who are happy to pass the buck to somebody else. And it just comes across as a manager who's incapable of getting the players to do what he wants to do. Assuming that's what he wants to do. Either that or he's just lying after every single game. And you really start to wonder whether last season was really down to the fact that Shankland was on fire and the defence was great.
And everyone else is pish.
Or everybody else was like 6 or 7 out of 10.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean in the rest of the league rather than.
Oh, right, yeah, there's that, yes.
There's like the perfect storm of things to come around that made Hearts get a canter. Like, I'm not saying Hearts wouldn't have been in third, but to get such a canter, Hearts are going to the season like in a really big position of strength. And I know you're planning. I don't know if you've done that pod yet. I know you're planning on doing one about the state of Hearts.
Yes. I should probably plug that now.
Rather than me going into it now, I don't want to step on toes.
We're already on 35 minutes, so we should probably move on to the next game. But yes, if you want to hear more about me talking with somebody else about the problems at Hearts at the moment and what's going to happen next, then I will be doing a Patreon podcast with Laurie Dunsire pretty much right after we finish recording this one, that will hopefully be able to get up tonight. If not, I'll get it up on Tuesday morning. But let's move on to our next game, and that was Kilmarnock 1, Hibs 1, with Killie equalising in injury time with a Bruce Anderson penalty after Joe Newell opened the scoring for Hibs in a fairly spectacular fashion. Tony, another late goal conceded by Hibs. Even with the general Hibs stereotype about you guys being a soft touch, is this like a particularly soft Easter Road defence? Is this literally Kevin McKinn's character from the Acid House?
It's it's starting to get it's untenable supporting Hibs. it's just too much, and you know it's coming. And I mean, obviously that's already in this season, and even if you go into last season, you're talking like I think you're in more than double figures of games where you're conceding after the 85th minute to lose points. But the soft thing, it's just really interesting because obviously this was the first game Hibs have done all their business. So it was the first game that he put out sort of like the what may well be the preferred midfield, for example.
Yeah.
And sort of in that back four. And Hibs looked anything but soft. Hibs looked extremely up for the fight, extremely able to cope with the most physical team in the league. I don't think anyone, I'm not saying that that's all Kilmarnock have, but they are certainly, they were particularly industrial in this game, hence why like the first half was fucking abysmal to watch. The ball was never out of the air for the whole game. And normally that would worry you, but like Hibs, he's built kind of a land of the giants now with adding Kwon and Triantis to that team, and you've still got Bowie, who's not really been playing a lot, who's over 6 foot. Yeah, it really is sort of getting to land of the giant. Like a lot of even like Miller, who's got his detractors and who isn't perfect, but he's physical, he's big, he's strong, he enjoys that side of the game. And the interesting thing, that what makes it so frustrating yesterday is when you moved into the second half, Hibs looked really fucking strong, really like aggressive, strong, and unable to be bullied and unable to be moved. Like Ekpiteta, who's taken a lot of stick for the start of his game, he looked so comfortable going up against a guy like Vassell and looked like he'd been specifically told his only passing was long range passing, which at times isn't that bad when he's done it, but he barely passed it back to the goalie because obviously he's already had 2 errors that have come from that in fucking 4 games or something. But he was like meat and potatoes. He won so many headers. He was just clearing his lines, sometimes to the point of like, fucking calm down. But that had clearly been something that had been spoke about. And then you had Kwon and Triantis, who were, as I said, huge. And in the second half, they were tremendous. Like Triantis was tremendous in the second half. But in the first half, he broke up a lot of play. He won the ball a fair bit. And obviously, aerially, him and Kwon are handy to have in a game like that. But second half, he was like intercepting loads. He was dancing past players. It was quick feet, pirouettes in tight areas in the middle of the park. He was absolutely bossing it. It was fucking class. And it was, you could see like Gray, sounded like Gray was the one who really pushed for his return. He liked him. And the people who maybe watched Hibs a bit last season knows that he did have some good games in midfield when he was in there. And Hibs were at pains to tell everyone that he was signed as a midfielder in that, which was a bizarre, funny. Yeah. No, I promise you. I
don't think I've ever seen a club do that before. I promise you, we're not going to play this man in defence. I know he's been a defender most of his career, but we've seen him before and he is shit there. But we're not going to play him there, okay?
And he was like, he hit the shot that went on the underside of the bar as well. Like, I mean, we're talking like he beat like 4 or 5 players in a mazy dribble and rocketed a shot off the underside of the bar. And as I said, Hibs were really quite good in the second half. And like you're seeing the blend that you were thinking, strength, but Kwon and Triantis are good footballers. Kwon's getting a chance to play a bit further forward because Triantis there, and he's really got the range. He's quite rangy, and when he picks up the ball, he's able to drive, and he's got a bit of quality. He can dribble past. He had a good shot near the end of the first half, and then you've obviously got Mick up front who hit like the most wild shot. That was like, if you get the angle from behind, I'm sure people have seen the highlights, where it's an absolute mental shot. And you've got that, and then the Joe Newell goal. So Hibs have nearly scored like the three of the... And the quality of goals this weekend in general, by the way, really quite high when you watch it back. And some of the efforts in that. So you're thinking, I would say, even though it's despondent, rather than Hibs being soft in there, it might be a mentality thing rather than a physical thing. It's definitely what I would say. And it's just, you're killing yourself with like individual errors. I mean, Obia just runs into the back. Egg Potato's done well to get back in position where we're not in trouble anymore. Like, he's going to have to beat him to hit a shot. He just runs at the back of him, and he's fucked what is like a really, really good second half performance where everyone can finally go, right, okay, I can see exactly how David Gray, he sort of won he sort of went toe battle wise in the first half and then allowed the quality to come through. And then, but I do want to try and be positive a bit about Hibs, because I mean, we give them a kicking all the time. Yeah. And then we've got like, and you're still thinking, Bowie still to come to the fore, Yuan still now a Hibs player. You're going to have Hoylett, and I think Hoylett might be really handy in the fact that it's going to be a bit of calm and composure round the box that they can use at any time. Someone who's never going to get flustered, and that might really help. But Hibs look like they can really go to, like, they won't lose. With that side, if they're losing the battle, it's mad, because it's fucking massive. Everyone's huge. And then if you bring Yuan in, Yuan's a tank. You know, he's a really fit guy. And Bowie coming in, Bowie who's like purpose-built for Scottish football. He's absolutely perfect. But I can see exactly why people would be desperate to get him on board. But yeah, just the individual error kills all that good work, all that momentum. And I said they won the battle towards the end of the first half, then started to express himself. And just to be clear, Joe Neal definitely meant that, in my opinion. You see him size it up. And the celebration with Boyle should tell, it's like the way he looks at each other, that's something that they've probably thought about and possibly practice. That's my take on it, because it's a lovely strike, and I do think he meant it just because of the way he celebrated. And I see him size up the goalie right before he goes to hit. So from a Hibs point of view, I'm trying to be sort of a bit more positive, because there was elements of it where you could see what type of team David Gray's trying to put out there. But if you do those individual errors, it doesn't matter how well you play in it. You're going to play shite in some games, and then the games that you play well in, you're going to do that, and then you're fucked. So, because we're going to play shite in some, there's no way that team's going to have fully developed or anything. So, still very worrying times, but at least I think we can start to see some sort of identity coming into the David Gray team. All right, but I suppose we need to mention Killie as well. They did get their draw in there. I mean, they must be the team most desperate for this little mini break that's coming now. And now that Europe's out the way, is everything just going to go back to normal, Craig? Is that the thought?
You don't want to say for certain, but you certainly feel like it. Because there's not much, like, we were looking at Killie coming into this season, and we were really impressed with kind of the general continuity of the squad. There wasn't a whole lot of players that left that were kind of big players, and even some that did, like Indaba and Finlay, they just got back. So it's surprising that they've been as poor as they have been so far this season. But I did, like, it just kind of goes to what I said to somebody. I was on Twitter earlier, and there was a Hearts fan saying, like, why are Hearts fans calling out for a manager that's the only team below us in the league table at this point in time? I was like, well, there's a lot of context to that. Like, first of all, Killie have had 6 games in Europe. So they've had more games in Europe than any other team in
they've
Scottish
done a
football.
group stage. They've done a group stage at the start of the season.
Yeah, exactly. They've done a group stage, and they've done it all within late July and August. So that's taken a lot out of you. They've also, I mean, they do have, I actually counted up their kind of experienced first-team players earlier, and they actually have a bigger squad than I thought, but there's just a bit of a drop-off in quality, really, when you look at some of the names there. Like, Innes Cameron's no doing anything for you. Like, Bobby Wales is still too young. Gary Mackay-Stevens not really doing much for you. Fraser Murray could do wee bits off the bench and stuff and that, but there's just a lot of guys in their squad that just aren't, they've got like a core 14, 15 who are all good players. But beyond that, there's just a wee bit of a drop-off. So they'll have to keep playing these guys all the time. And them and St Mirren are like the 2 teams in the league where being fit is important to them. Mm-hmm. Like, that is a big part of their style, is how uncomfortable they make it for other teams and how hard they run. That is just a big part of how Killie function. And when you're more in football, because it's always a thing when you were younger, and I think it was probably more true of football back then, that somebody would be like 80%, and you'd be like, well, that's fine. Like, 80% is fine. Get out there, no excuse, you should still be playing well. Football's just, because there's so much like focus on everything, to diet, to sports scientists, to everything, to get the maximum amount. Players are just so much more athletes now than they ever have been. And so when you go in a game and one team's 80% and the other team's like 95%, that's a huge difference. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just what's basically happened to Killie so far this season. And it's, I mean, we didn't talk about it, but it's another game in which the best player was their goalkeeper as well. So that's really telling you a lot about just how much they're kind of struggling at this point in time. The one thing that gives me like pause for thought is that when runs like this happen, and if they come back for an international break and say their first game afterwards, they get like I'll need to check what it is just now, but say like they get like an early red card or something, which to be fair, they've had fucking loads of this season.
Yeah, I mean, and Daba was quite lucky in this game in the first half as well.
Which maybe again speaks to a bit of tiredness, just like kind of that lack of discipline because you're not quite fully at it. Or they actually play St Mirren first. So that'll be interesting. That's
the battle of the rested.
I was going to say the battle of the battle.
The battle of the rested.
But then they've got like Dundee United, and it's like say they only draw at St Mirren, and then they've got Dundee United at home, and it's like, right, we need to get a victory, and then something bad happens. They get a dodgy penalty against them, or a red card or something like that, and it's another defeat, and then it gets to the time when you start to worry, and then that's when confidence sinks, and then it can snowball and things can get bad. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's the worst case scenario for Killie. I generally think they will be fine. It's kind of a shame that Europe taking such a toll on them at this early part in the season might play a significant part in them not getting Europe again next year. But that's just unfortunately the way it goes.
And they went for it. They actually tried. Kim McInnes was very vocal about how much they were trying to get into the group stages. Yeah. You just know that it's worth it. It's worth trying to do it. And I think, well, a lot of what you're saying about Kilmarnock there offers the caveat a bit about what I was saying maybe about the Hibs defence, how it maybe looked better. There was elements of it that looked really good. It dealt with the aerial battle and the constant crosses for Kilmarnock really well, but it didn't have to face up with the pressing quite as much as you would normally expect from a Kilmarnock team at home, and that's been some of the things that have made Hibs look their weakest at the back. So there's maybe a caveat of that, as Kilmarnock not being able to do that allowed the Hibs defence to gain confidence over the course of the game. So that's maybe a caveat. And again, you're taking away one of Kilmarnock's sort of main strengths, that they weren't able to do that for 90 minutes. And the other thing that we'd always worry about Kilmarnock is they run with strikers that don't really score. And that's, again, Vassell offers you so much more. And Watkins, and these guys, they are good strikers. They're very good for Kilmarnock. So again, there's a big bit about them scoring from set pieces and defenders all chipping in with 3-4 goals each over a season. So if that doesn't go their way, then that could be, again, like you're saying about the snowball effect. That would be a worry for me. And the fact they don't really have much midfielders as well who may be willing to take a pop at goal a bit.
Yeah. Right, let's move on to our most high-scoring game of the weekend, and that took place at Dens Park, where Dundee and St Mirren played a 2-2 draw. St Mirren twice took the lead in the first half through Toyosi Olisanya and Mikael Mandron, but twice Dundee equalised, first in the first half through Curtis Main, and then through Zayed Larkesh in the second 45.
But Fowler, I mean, I didn't notice. I noticed at all. Apparently Luke McCowan signed for Celtic. Honestly. It pretty much passed me by, but it wasn't until I switched on the highlights. I was like, "Oh, where's Luke McCowan?" But I mean, what was a Dundee team like post Luke McCowan? I suppose.
I mean, it was still pretty good. The midfield was still good. The thing that raised my eyebrow before the game when I it wasn't the game I watched on
like
Saturday.
The Rock raised my eyebrow. He didn't say eyebrows. It was like a singular eyebrow.
I could kind of do
like Carlo Ancelotti.
I can do the eyebrow with only one eyebrow. I can't do it with my right. I don't know if The Rock could do it with both. Anyway, but before the game, they gave a full debut to Sammy Braybrook, who looks like the kind of mini Todd Cantwell. And he was like neat and tidy enough on his debut, but I was surprised because I kind of thought
Dundee dads are going to be all over him then. I'm looking forward to that.
I thought it was surprising because I just imagined that Josh Mulligan, who kind of over the last season or maybe like slightly before then, I'm trying to think, maybe just last season, like maybe bigger things were expected of him. because he's a very highly rated young player, and he just was a lot of the time, like he played a fair bit, because like it's a squad game, and he's quite versatile. He can play at wing back, he can play at full back, he can play in the middle of the park. But he that was kind of what he was. He was not somebody that got like major runs in the team. He was used here and there, coming off the bench, and so. But he had a really good League Cup group stage, and it was kind of. There was even talk. I think Gary had even said that he could have felt that the midfield might have been at its best if Lyle Cameron had come out of it, and Mulligan had gone into the midfield and played more kind of alongside Silla with McCowan going forward more. So McCowan goes, and he's not in the team. But Gary did say, well, he's just come back for injury. So the chances are that he just wasn't fit enough to start the full game. And he did come off the bench, and Dundee in the second half did get better for a couple of changes, actually. They got better for that. And also the move to a back four. The defence had just looked a bit dodgy again. You saw Portales' mistake for the goal. There was also Billy Kumetio also so far has looked good in the air, but has looked a bit dodgy in other aspects of his game. So they shifted things around.
He went off injured, didn't he? Which is another defensive injury. So they're running out of bodies in that area. But
Jordan McGee did go to centre-back and played very well. He could have just had a bit of a...
That was his original home, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. All the way back in his Hearts days, his original home was centre-half. And he just could have played with a bit more poise. And I think that's something that Dundee are maybe lacking in their defence. But Mulligan came on as well, and they looked a bit better in the middle of the park. It also meant that Cameron in the kind of the earlier going was a bit further forward. Whereas you think of Cameron as an attacking player, and he certainly is more of he's not a defensive midfielder, but a lot of what Cameron does well is kind of play more as a kind of, if you think of the three they had last season, Silla, either Silla or Boateng, Cameron and McCowan. That was like your 6, 8 and 10. Whereas I think in the first half of this one, they tried to have Cameron as a bit more of that 10, and not sure whether it entirely suited him exactly. However, overall, he did have a good game. And he did show that there is life in the post-McCowan era. And
his
Mulligan,
quality that created the goal, didn't it?
Aye. And if Mulligan can live up to that pre-season hype, then they're going to drop a bit, obviously. McCowan was one of the best players in the league last season, and had started off the season very good as well. But it might not be that much of a drop-off where it really harms this Dundee side to an extent that they're just kind of broken by it. As you'd see so many times when a kind of Scottish football team that's especially out with the big five clubs, when they sell their best player, and then it's just kind of things quickly fall to pieces. I think if Mulligan can like I say, live up to that hype, then I think they'll generally be fine.
To go to the just a bit of the game, if that's all right. Portales, it's like Olasanya is like, it was sort of like Portales doing that. It seems bizarre because it's like he plays against the player that Olasanya's becoming every day in training. So Olasanya's becoming sort of Simon Murray, a smaller version, but the attributes match up really, really nicely. And Olasanya's probably doing it maybe even a bit earlier than Simon Murray in terms of the way he's looking. But Portales, I just fucking, it doesn't aid him when it's like, God, are you doing the thing that they told us not to do? Literally the first time I ever went on a football pitch. It's like, don't let the ball bounce. It just fucking, it's engraved in my mind by moron coaches. Coaches who don't know anything else. This is what they say to try and look smart. Don't pass the ball across the penalty area. Don't let the ball bounce. And he fucking does it. And Olasanya does. But it's like exactly what Olasanya wants. That's exactly what he's sniffing for. And he scores those types of goals quite a lot when he has to tuck it in from sort of like a wide area. But the goals in this game, man, it's a really high quality. Matt Mandron's is electric, man. What a sliced half volley. Yes. Absolutely class. Are St Mirren, I suppose you're going back to what you were talking about earlier, are St Mirren just in the same boat as Kilmarnock? Is it just the exact same issue?
I think so. There's probably I think it's St Mirren, there's maybe a more kind of parity of player throughout their squad than Killie. That might not be entirely accurate. It's just kind of a feeling I've got about them. But yeah, they are the kind of similar boat. St Mirren they're also kind of like, they're a bit like Hearts as well to start the season, but without.
Oh.
Actually, nowhere near that bad.
Yeah.
But like part of Hearts' problem is also kind of the fact that they've not handled bringing in the new bodies very well. It's just it's one of those things. You go one or two ways. You can bring in a guy and he just immediately clicks with the rest of his teammates, and you can bring in guys who need a bit to settle. And it seems like Hearts have brought in guys who are either crap. That's completely possible, I have to say. But I think it's more likely with a lot of them that they just need a bit of time, and that time just doesn't really come at a club that is as big as kind of demanded as Hearts is. St Mirren, I think, has been kind of the same because, not so much that the new players coming in have needed time to settle, more about the fact that the team, and especially the midfield, has just been in flux this entire season. So Boyd Munce hasn't had a great start to the campaign, but a lot of that's to do with the fact that he was carrying an injury and then was kind of having to play through them in European games. Ahara was in and out due to injury. You've got Phillips, who's now in, who's just not long in the door himself. Idowu and Smith have had their moments, but have looked dodgy at others, so they're obviously needing a bit of time to get used to Scottish football, get used to the Scottish Premiership, get used to their new teammates. They've had a bit of... I mean, it's the same guys. They do rotate, obviously, but they've just had a bit more of that kind of consistency up front and defence when it comes to selection. So it's those areas haven't been as much of an issue, but I think their midfield needs a bit of time. And again, the international break, I think, will help them with that. And you know as well, the St Mirren midfield is a huge part of that team.
Aye, absolutely. But again, then also when you've got Richard Taylor bringing my idiot coach back to the forefront going, why did you let it bounce again? Because that was fucking atrocious and all.
Well,
and then the least main finish I've possibly imagined. Even I'm sure he done an amazing lob when he played for Motherwell, possibly at Hampden. But it was
I think you're thinking of Louis Moult.
Well, Louis Moult, aye. A very unmain finish. It was delicious, but again, Tony Dockery, amazing at picking out left backs because this Larkesh looks class. I've seen him in 3 games now, and he's looked good, and now he's rifling in goals, just like Owen Beck. It's a very Owen Beck moment.
Look good in the highlights. Still not convinced by him overall yet. His crossing is not good. I knew that coming in. I
thought he was class against Hearts.
Aye, but come on.
Oh, okay. So now we're qualifying the team that finished about 15. Fuck, you've no chance. Fucking no chance.
Come on, you watched the Hearts performance in the first half, for Christ's sake. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not entirely convinced by him. Ingram came off the bench because I wasn't really convinced by him.
Major Charles Ingram.
Yeah, I wasn't convinced by him to start this season. And but in this game coming off, I was going to say he looked like a millionaire. That's rubbish.
Good. Very good. What, cheesing? Treating homeless people badly. I mean, where are we going?
Yeah, he was good coming off the bench. Larkesh, good goal, but there's question marks, I think, around him. Just on Richard Taylor before we move on, this was just I'm a big Taylor fan, but this was the best and worst of him in the same game because you see him create the Olasanya chance earlier in the match by going on that kind of run. It's like how many other centre halves in the league are going to do that? And that gives you an extra element in attack. And he got taken off at half time. I've not been able to find whether that was an injury.
I was wondering if he got
I've not been able to find whether that was an injury or whether he was taken off for his mistake. Because that was certainly the mistakes that crept into his game were certainly why towards the end of last season he was on the bench a lot of the time and they were playing like James Bolton, who I mean was like fucking hell, like talk about like meat and potatoes defenders. Yeah. But St Mirren second half performance wasn't as good as the first, and him coming out from it was basically their entire left side because Tanser was back in the team and probably had one of his best games so far this season. But he went off and Jayden Brown came on. And Brown's been better than Tanser so far this season. But Tanser, when he's playing well, will be their starting left-sided player.
Yes, he's got more to his game, yeah.
So those two subs really hampered St Mirren in the second period. They just didn't have that kind of attacking impetus down the left. And for a team that took the lead twice, in the end, they were probably a bit fortunate that they didn't actually lose the game. Right, let's move on. We've got 2 games left, and let's begin with the one with 3 goals, shall we? Even though it was probably the less entertaining of the 2 of these, and that was St Johnstone 1, Motherwell 2, and this was Motherwell opening the scoring through Dan Casey. Benjamin Kimpioka got the equaliser, and then Moses Abiy, which quite possibly could have been Dan Casey again, getting the winner in injury time. And I mean, they were unlucky with the winning goal in the sense that it shouldn't have been a corner. It came off the crossbar. Sinclair went up to do that kind of goalie thing where you're just making sure it goes over the bar. The officials wrongly interpreted that as him touching it over the bar. So he's unlucky in that sense, but there's no doubt that Sinclair was hugely at fault for the opening goal. He was in the team because Josh Ray has been hugely at fault for a number of goals to start this campaign. And Tony, I don't know if it's just me, but it just kind of feels like St Johnstone are a lot better than we thought they were going into this season, but it still feels to me like this goalkeeper situation might still get them relegated.
They've totally flipped it, haven't they? Last season they had the best goalie in the league by maybe quite some distance, and they couldn't fucking score, and it was torture. And now they're going in with like they've found like two of fucking absolute diamonds in the rough, in Kimpioka and Sidibe. And they look.
And like Sidibe's not even had that great a start to the season. He could get better. He was better last season.
But the moments when they look electric, and they look like an absolute handful, and it's two really quick guys. And Sidibe scored a couple of goals already at the start of the season. And Kimpioka done it again in this game where he pulls one out. And you're just like, oh, that's totally. And this is the thing that makes you fucking raging as a fan. You think you've got one thing sorted. You think, right, we're all good here. And then it's like, we need to improve that bit. And then the second you do it, it's like you just basically, it's like when you're trying to hide. Oh, I don't know where I was going with there. I'm not going to do it.
I was going to say, it's like fixing a leak. And then you patch one and it springs for somebody else. I don't know where you were going either. I was going to be. Thank you for stopping yourself.
Yeah, I was thinking doing the lines of holes in your boxer shorts, and you hide what? you hide your willy, but suddenly your balls chop off
Okay, you went there anyway.
I've done it. I had a bit more time to maybe say it in a more eloquent fashion than when I was going.
How much worse could it have been?
But so it's just like it's just so fucking annoying, and it's the point of being the also-rans like we all are in the league, is that you can never ever just get it fucking right. You never just have the whole thing completely sorted. There's always a weakness. But I mean, at least ultimately, if St Johnstone are going to stay up, I'd prefer to do it this way with a crap goalie than with the good goalie and fuck all else. So
yeah, and I mean, you talk about Kimpioka. Yeah, he's the biggest improvement from last season for St Johnstone, because he did have moments and he had flashes and you could see the talent that was there. But I mean, they were saved last season by Sidibe's goals, and Sidibe was undoubtedly the better player of the two. Kimpioka has been better than Sidibe so far this season, right from the start, right from the League Cup games, and he was. I watched 75 minutes of this one because I had to get through to Edinburgh because I was going out for dinner. But he was. So Johnson didn't have much going forward, but everything they did have kind of came from him, and it was no surprise that he got the goal, even though he's going to have to eat a bit of crow here, even though he was helped it massively by a substitute that Craig Levein made when he brought on Mackenzie Kirk. It was part of a triple sub they made, and then literally right away, ball up, Mackenzie Kirk back to goal, takes it in, beats his man, races up, plays a through ball to Kimpioka scores. And this is a guy that when he went to Hearts with St Johnstone and Hearts fans were losing their shit. I mean, I still think for basically the wrong reasons, because the reason why Hearts fans are losing their shit is because he scored like 40 goals in the Lowland League. Yeah. And I'm like, who cares? You wouldn't want to sign anybody else for the Lowland League who scored 40 goals. It's only because he's playing in a Hearts shirt while he's doing it that you want you've got such high hopes for him. And he was on loan at Hamilton last year and done fuck all. And we could have thought, well, in the Lowland League, he scored all these goals. He's presented with loads of chances on a plate for a team that was good in the Lowland League. At a team like St Johnstone, he's going to struggle. He's not going to be able to do anything other than score goals, and he's not going to get the chances to do it. That's not what's happened, Tony.
Because it's not even just this game. There's other games he's come on where he's like created chances coming from wide areas and stuff like that. It's just completely, because I was without knowing the same level as like what you and Robert and stuff were saying to me. I was just like, when we watch enough football, I'd went into assumption mode. He must be shit. Like he's not going to be able to come. But now maybe I'm learning through all the Sanya and now Mackenzie Kirk. Maybe it's easier being a striker in the top flight. Maybe it's just easier. And the lower leagues are harder to be a striker. Because you can't get a game for Arbroath, you can't get a game for Accies, And then you come into the top flight and slowly but surely you become like super sub. And now all of a sudden you're now, I'm going to go as far as saying St Mirren's best striker would be my opinion now. So next season, they're going to sell Sidibe for money and Mackenzie Kirk's just going to be the main striker for St Johnstone. And good. So that's exactly what's going to happen. Somehow. It's easier being a top flight striker than it is.
I will say that I would have been more pissed off about Hearts selling Mackenzie Kirk if I realised then at that point that there was just no plan to sign another forward.
Yeah. But you assumed there was someone else better coming in to be back up to Shanklin. Right now, Mackenzie Kirk would be handy.
Yeah, he went time. Fuck's sake.
We know nothing. Don't listen. Cancel your Patreon subscriptions. It's pointless.
No, don't do that. I need to eat.
But Fowler, talking of needing to eat, Motherwell seemed to gobble everything up for set pieces recently. Are they the kings of them now in Scotland?
They're certainly, I mean, to be fair, Graham almost kind of warned us about this, that Motherwell just seemed to be, I mean, we weren't impressed at all by Motherwell's business in the summer. But what Graham said was that they basically seem to be building a team of absolutely massive guys. Now they seem to be building a team of attackers because they've got absolutely hunters now on their books.
Yeah.
So many of them are still
descent wingers, mainly. Is it? So many all coming at once.
Yeah, there's so many of them are still injured. Like attackers are still injured.
So I can't even get a handle on them all because it's like someone new turns up and plays wide every single week. So I can't get a handle on it at all.
They're either still getting up to speed or they've been injured or they've been in and out of the team. So there's still a bit to come. So I reckon there will be improvements in Motherwell's front. For Motherwell at the time being, so they've won their last 2 games and they're the better team in both games. But at the same time, they still don't really look like creating much in open play, which again would be a bit of a concern if there wasn't for the fact they've got so many players to come back.
Yeah, because now if you're a Motherwell fan, you look at it from the positive point of view, it's like, well, if we're really good at set pieces and we're going to be able to drop Miller into a more maybe a central attacking midfield position and introduce more wide players that if they're not playing well, they probably know that their place is under threat. And obviously straight away the wide player that has been playing a lot, Maswanisi, he's looked really quite handy and brought a lot. So if the other ones, I mean, if he makes Jair Tavares a player, then fucking hell, Stephen Kettlewell, I'm convinced he's going to do a Theo Bear with them, and he's going to come back to Hibs the next season and be fucking shit. That's what's going to happen, and we'll play him every week. Straight away. But yeah, if you're a Motherwell fan, be getting a tiny wee bit of a tinge of excitement that, well, if we've got the set pieces down and we're going to add some more attacking talent, once you marry the two, maybe we're a handful, even though the 2 set pieces he scored against Hearts. You do a podcast called My Granny Would Have Scored That. So I
mean, you could also maybe say about the first goal in this game as well. We Sinclair coming out and getting
so maybe we need to watch where we're going with the old set pieces with Motherwell. Who knows?
I think, I still don't like Lennon Miller in the advanced role. I don't like Zach Robinson. I don't think he's any good. You're right in saying Maswanisi, it looks like he's got something about him and they should be excited by him. They should also probably be, I know he's not really done much in the top flight for a good, 3-4 years now. But Tony Watt would be better as a central striker than Zach Robinson for me. Miller, you would like to think, will move back into his natural position once they've got a few more attacker players. I think he's there for needs must at the moment. They're just trying. Long term, I don't like it, and I don't think they should try to do it. But I would like to think that
and Miller in the centre midfield sounds like it'd be pretty good.
I'd like to think he'll put him back in his more kind of natural position, quote unquote natural position.
Even though he's tough to remove Andy Halliday, who, according to the commentator, has a wand of a left foot. So. Even though he did score a good goal that got disallowed, it was a really good
actually, yeah. It was actually belter. I still don't know if I'd go that far. But
I don't know if wand of a left foot.
It's like basically anybody that's left-footed who's at one point in their career taking corners or whatever, or can pass the ball more than or could play a long-range pass. It's always a wand of a left foot. But just finally on Motherwell, like their defence looks good this season, I would say, and looks an improvement on last year. I like the kind of balance of that back three. Graham talked about this last week with Casey McGinn, both kind of able of stepping out for defence, and Liam Gordon looking like he's reborn.
Well, I mean, it's just the exact same as what happened to him at St Johnstone. He was put in the centre looked after. You know, it's about a guy when you've got the meat and potatoes defenders. And you're playing them in a back three, then the other two have to be able to do stuff. And then Gordon just focuses on what he's good at, and he's fucking huge. Gordon, as I said, I'm trying. Sorry to go back to this point, but I'm just still trying to picture Jair Tavares at training at Motherwell and how he's not going to get absolutely fucking leathered.
maybe that's what he needs. He's kicked up and down all season. Come
back, he's a machine. Yeah, he can handle anything. Never gets injured.
First training session, just headbutts Lewis Miller. That's it. Sets the tempo for the rest of his Hibs career.
You Kettlewell tell Liam Gordon, just go over and fucking punch him in the face the second he comes at you.
Every day.
That's how you go. Hibs, Gray, and the Kettlewell have agreed on this to happen when he goes.
Right, let's go to our final game. This is a long podcast.
I don't know, an hour and 15. That's an hour and 20. It's not too bad, is it?
It's not a game to go, though.
Aye,
and the final game is Ross County 0, Aberdeen 1. The only goal of the game coming in injury time with Kevin Nisbet getting his first Aberdeen goal with some tremendous scenes behind that goal. I mean, the pitch invasion was... I mean, not just... I don't mind the pitch invasion, but it's like a bit of spilling over and you run around the goal a wee bit and that's fine. But it was kind of got to the point where it's like hundreds of people in the penalty area. I was like, okay, guys, calm down a bit. But
there's big Livingston away vibes from that one.
I love the surge forward for the crowd when they first went in. It looked fucking class. But Nisbet getting the goal. But for Aberdeen, Tony, there's one player I just want to kind of wax lyrical about, and I'd like you to join me in doing so. Has there been any better signings in the Scottish Premiership so far this season than, I don't even know how to pronounce his full name, Sivert Heltne Nielsen?
I know, and further, the funny thing is that there was a bit of trepidation when he came in, you would say. I think people thought, he gets sent off a lot, big tough tackling midfielder, puts himself about, but if he's a bit hot-headed, then in Scottish football, that'll get sort of found out quite quickly. But it looks more like he's like really tactically disciplined, and his ability to read the game, and he breaks up play really well, and then on top of that, he passes forward. And maybe another thing, before I'll let you talk about him a second, but he's unlocked Graham Shinney again, who's been tremendous. So what an impact. He's not just had an impact in his role, he's also really brought out one of sort of Aberdeen's best players again to look his best. So there's not much more you can ask of bringing in a fucking 32-year-old defensive midfielder.
Not only that, he's allowed them to kind of play with... So they ostensibly play with three in midfield, but one of those, for the most part of this season, I mean, it might be Clarkson when he comes back, but with Clarkson being out, they've played like Pat Gay there, like Basayan came off the bench in this game, Sockler was playing there alongside Nisbet in the first half after McGrath had to go off, and Gay went out to the left. So he's allowing them to play with a very attack-minded player as part of that midfield three. And, I mean, when I watch him play, and Aberdeen fans who have listened to this show for more than 2 years will know that there is scarcely higher praise that will come out of my mouth than this. He reminds me of prime Peter Harron. That's how good he looks so far, because and I love players like this. Guys who just seem to, almost by themselves, dominate midfield areas. That just seem to always be there to block the opposing team, but also have that composure on the ball and not just pass it sideways. Like you say, we've seen it from him a couple of times this season where he's played like good through balls. Like the goal at St Johnstone being a prime example of that. That he's got a bit of that quality as well, that he's not just kind of, right, okay, I'm a stopper and that's it, and as soon as I get the ball, I'm going to pass it to whichever teammate is in my nearest vicinity, and that's it, don't give me it again. He's not one of those guys. He's a better player than that. And he's just been perfect. Been absolutely perfect for what Aberdeen have needed. As I
said, so fair play. And this is one that's another good one for Jimmy Phelan, who comes in. He's trying to implement a new style of play. There's a bit of expectation about him. And paying money for a 32-year-old defensive midfielder, I'm sure he has to do a bit of convincing there. Do you know what I mean? Like you're nailing your colours to your mast. It's quite a big, it's bold. You're basically saying to the board, I know this is probably not where you want, how you want to do your recruitment or whatever, that honestly, this guy will be so important to us. This will do so much. And then that really helps if you're him. If the first time you do that, it comes off to this degree, and like I said, unlocks another player in the team, and he seems to be like now looking like the glue that's holding everything together. And the fact that last season, Aberdeen looking a wee bit like Hearts this season, actually, where it's like you can let them have the ball, all day, and they wouldn't do fuck all. You just sitting against them, and you do the same thing. Every team just does the same thing against them, and they know what to do. But then when you've got deeper players, and this is why they're so sought after in world football, ball playing goalies, ball playing defenders, defensive midfielders that are more than just screeners. Because once you're able to, if you've got ball players who come in for deep, then it's really just sitting in against a team isn't really just possible, because they'll still be able to unlock you because you've got people playing football from every area. And like I said, for him to get that early, to get that one right so quickly, when he goes into next summer, then his say will have a lot of credence behind it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was going to say, I don't know how much a negative it is, because you've got Kevin Nisbet coming in and scoring, but I was going to say the negative for Aberdeen in this one, this might just be the end of any hope that Esther Sockler comes good, because he was not good in that first half at all. I thought he was quite easily Aberdeen's weakest player. Like, the ball, a couple of times, just some really bad touches, and just like, and he's missing just about every chance he's getting in the league as well. And with Nisbet now coming on and scoring, Nisbet's going to look like he's going to be the Aberdeen number 9 now.
He's Soccer's still going
to get his opportunities, but it's just going to be very much like last season, where he's having to come off the bench and replace their better forward. And I had high hopes for Soccer coming to the season, because I saw those flashes, and I thought, well, Miovski's going to be good, so he's going to get his chance. And he has had his chance this season, and he's not taken it.
And the sad thing is for him is that he's got a manager who's very much clean-slated everyone, and it's been a major part of how they've been able to do well, because every single player in the squads looks confident and looks like they know that they're going to be able to contribute. Bazayan, you mentioned earlier, he's already scored this season a goal in this game.
He scored an absolute fucker.
He scored that's clearly a guy who knows I'm part of this now. I'm not, and it's really I like it when managers are able to do this when they don't have to go down the fucking ostracising route with players, because it's always, you're fucking paying them. It seems like a waste to ostracise guys and not make them feel at least part of the squad. And I know you might want to, if you've got too big a squad, and I know you might be under pressure to do it from other angles, but it's been a real feature for Thielen coming in, that everyone, like Papagay's banging in goals, playing, not even playing in the right position, and he's finding rooms for him to get him to do it. And like you're saying, so if it's not happening with Sockler in that environment, with that manager, you start thinking, maybe he's just no kind of cut out for it. And then Mitov, huge save for a penalty. And this is the difference between, again, sorry to bring my Hibs, but the Bursic, lone goalie, not great. And then you're just like, why the fuck? I mean, you'll feel the same. Why? You've got a 41-year-old in goals. And just, how the fuck is Mitov just going? I mean, we've done this I think I do this every time I'm on with you. Unopposed for 300 grand. He might have won at Aberdeen anyway, but it's negligence for other teams not to have asked the question. And then you see the difference in this game, because it's like a fucking tremendous save from a low down penalty. And as I said numerous times, Mitov wasn't just one of the best goalies in the league last season. He was one of the best players in the league last season. His impact on the team was as important as anyone's at any team. And then he's just turned up there for fucking buttons. And then they're just doing it right away. And it's like they know that he's solid for 3 years there. You know he's good enough. And then he's just saying the highlights, it's him making that huge penalty save. And the next thing you're seeing is Nisbet rolling the ball in there. And it's really quite classic Kevin Nisbet, the not just running into the box, hanging back. That's, you see that a lot. And then it's a tidy wee finish. And he does look slimmer than what that picture was early on in the pre-season. So it looks like he's ready. And if he is, then it's just a fucking good signing, isn't it? It's a guarantee. He's going to score goals. Yes. I'm
starting to look at this Aberdeen team now, and especially when everybody's fit, like starting 11, where's the weakness? Like, where is the weakness? Like, even McGrath, like, we kind of thought, is Jamie McGrath going to play left wing the entire season? Before he went off in this game and in recent performances as well, he looked good.
He's been absolutely tremendous.
Yeah.
And again, like you're saying with the pylon on the pitch, you always feel like going to the traditional hard place to go. You can a goal being disallowed for them, goal being disallowed for you, them missing a penalty, then you scored in the last minute. It just feels great.
It would have been a real emotional one, wouldn't it? Yeah,
and you start like, fucking hell, we're doing it. You know, they're convinced. They'll be thinking they're going to split the Old Firm. You know, and I know they're not, but you know what I mean? But that belief that surges through you, and it's always that when you go away to Ross County or Livingston, you know, like these, the minging ones, you know, the ones that they always, even though if you really look at the stats, they're probably not. But they, again, if you're just a fan, you always think it's going to fucking stink. You know, you always think it's going to stink. And then when you pull it out like that and you've gone through the ringer a bit and you've had maybe even a bit of luck at times and you pull out the bag and your brand new striker is fucking slotting at home, yeah, the belief is surging through the fans with the players. And you're starting to think that they're going to be hard to stop for third.
Yeah, most certainly. Right, we've only got one more team to talk about, Ross County. So,
well, what's missing from them? What's missing from them then, Craig? What is missing?
It's just an attack, really. I think defensively against Rangers last week, they were appalling.
yeah.
So bad. I couldn't believe some of the goals I was watching because, we've all had games where we've lost 5 or 6 to Celtic and Rangers, and you're kind of looking at your own team's defender and you're thinking, Jesus, how bad was this? But quite often of the time, you're getting really done in by some good play, and your players just aren't good enough to keep up with it. And somebody switches off for a second, you know. Classic, especially I've got a picture of this at Celtic. Like the ball goes out to somebody on the wing, and a defender just loses concentration, lets the man run off him, and then it's an easy kind of pass, kind of side-footed in by Kyogo or whatever. Mm. But with the Rangers game, it was like so much was just like them walking past Ross County players who weren't even touching them. Like, not even getting physical with them, not even, like, making it difficult. And I was like, Jesus, that is so bad. But other games this season, they've actually been good in defence, and I think even from last week, they've improved upon that as well.
I feel like you're demeaning one of the Rangers' best results of the last 4 years.
Oh, what a shout. What an absolute shout. Hang on, I'm going to have to get up with the guy's first name, because I've only put in his surname in my notes. It's the new signing that was making his debut at the heart of the back three, Lopata.
It begins with a K, if that helps. Kevin Lopata.
It looks like Casper, but it's got a C instead of an S. Let's just go with Casper. Casper Lopata. He was good at the heart of the back three. He just basically cleared everything that came anywhere near him. And was it Akil Wright to his right-hand side, who he was chief offender against Rangers, but he was very good in this game as well. And that was really the strength of the team. Even Ryan Leake played all right, but he was he was a left of the back three, and he's not a good player on the ball. But Nightingale was out in this one. If he comes back into it, that's quite a solid back three. George Harman, left wing back. He's not the best of players, but he can make things happen. He can get into the opposing box. You've seen he scored some big goals for County in his time there. And I quite like James Brown on the other side. So they've got that.
And it's Harman who wins the penalty. It's his shot that wins the penalty.
Yeah. Harman's always kind of good at popping up in the opposition box and making things happen. So they've got a good back five there. And we've said for a couple of years now that Ross Laidlaw is quite improved. And
they've got a million midfielders. They've got a million centre midfielders.
Aye, but aren't any of them any good? And I mean,
Josh Nisbet was his debut from Australia. Obviously, he's a guy that I've seen his name constantly because I think it was pretty much set in stone he was going to come to Hibs if Monty was still the manager. So there's a Hibs contingent online and on your forums and that seem convinced he's a player. So I'm interested to watch him.
Surely if he was going to arrive, if Monty was going to be manager, you'd be convinced he'd be shite.
Well, that's me, Craig. But I mean, that's what I would think. But
he started this one. So there was early on he tried a through ball that nearly came off, and I can't remember who it was to. It might have been Brophy, but if he'd done it, then Brophy would have been in behind the defence, and I was like, okay, that's.
And he's
good.
involved in the goal that gets disallowed. It's his shot, isn't it?
Yeah, and there was. Was it a shot? Or I thought it was maybe Brophy's.
It's Brophy cuts it back. Brophy goes
right. Sorry.
And Nisbet hits the shot. So I think that it was something they lacked. They had a lot of midfielders that have similar attributes. Because I spoke about their game that they played against Dundee United, and like they just played like 4 central midfielders flat across, and they were all allowed to just rotate positions because they were all exactly the same player in the midfield. So maybe this brings a bit of pizzazz and maybe attacking midfielder, a goal scorer.
He did actually. He had those kind of early moments, and then he didn't really do much for the rest of the game. But it is his first start, so it's early days. But I think they will need him to come to the fore a bit because there's just real no creativity in this team. And also, he was a bit hampered in this game as well because he was partnered alongside Conor Randall and Aidan Denham, who are both fine. And Denham actually, I think, played quite well in particular. But
Denham's had a few good games for them, I thought.
Aye, Denham's about vertical running. He's not really much of a kind of passing player, and I think you'd probably say something vaguely similar about Randall, maybe a wee bit harsher on him, but like I think Nisbet was kind of asked to do maybe a little bit too much, and County really struggled to keep the ball in this game. It was kind of a lot of wave of Aberdeen attacks throughout the match without them creating too much clear cut, which again goes back to how well County defended their penalty area. But also up front as well. Hale is... Every week we say this. It doesn't matter who's on. I think every single one of us has said this. Hale's got something about him.
Absolutely.
Do you know who I doesn't think has anything about them anymore at this level?
Eamon Brophy.
Yeah. I've given up now. We were a huge Brophy fans for a number of years.
We've based our entire careers on him.
I just don't really see it anymore from him. He's just not the consistent threat that he used to be. We always made fun of him for shooting for anywhere. But it's just, at least he was an issue for opposing teams that they had to deal with at Killie. And it would pop up every now and again after he left Killie. I just don't really see it anymore. And then you bring Jordan White off the bench, and then that completely changes how you want to play, because the only way to really use Jordan White is to go long term. And it initially did work out. What eventually led to the penalty was Jordan White winning a header, which got them high up the park, and then they just kind of kept it there and eventually got the penalty out of it. But then after that, it was just kind of Aberdeen was like, okay, this is your game plan now. We can now deal with this. So County look a lot. So if you're like imagining County and St Johnstone look like the two teams that are most likely to finish last this season. And it's funny because they're very different in that one of them looks very good defensively. Not entirely sure how much they've got at the other end of the park. The other one looks like they're going to score quite a few goals, at least got good forwards. But are they just going to ship goals in too often?
A shit goalie.
Yeah.
And it's just, and again, this the horrible thing when I talked about the Meatoff leaving, it's like Hale coming in, and you just think he would be perfect. He'd be a perfect foil with Simon Murray. Just again, it's like well, why? But you can't have both because you're Ross County, so you have to sell to buy, etc., etc. And it's just because obviously Brophy's trying to do what the Murray role would be, and he's going more into the channels. He's meant to have more mobility, and so that's taken away. So who knows? I mean, they might be able to. They've got so many central players that they might even be able to move. Like I don't know enough about Nisbet, but could she be an auxiliary one? You're looking for a pest to go up there that isn't Jordan White, because like you say, that initiates a different style of play. But you're looking for a pest to go up to give Hale room, because Hale doesn't look like he doesn't have loads of legs. He's not a particularly quick player. He's more about like he's got shooting ability, and he's got an array of finishing. First impressions would be that Nisbet's too small to play, even as a kind of number 10 off. And I don't think he scored a lot of goals, and that's it. No. Maybe it's I just think maybe it's just like one of those things that over time he might have to think of something a bit left field. And I know he's up for it, because obviously even like I've seen they've moved Laturi into forward positions in games, which it didn't work. So that tells me that he's obviously thinking like this. He's maybe thinking similar to you, that he wants another option for Brophy, but it has to be that style of player, and he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to go long, because obviously you've got 100 central midfielders, so surely you want to go through the middle and sort of use them. Otherwise, it's a fucking waste of having 8 of them. So but Cowie's shown, I think, over his small stint as manager so far, that he's quite flexible. He has make chances. Yes. He makes changes on the bench. He doesn't just sit and wait. He tries to impact the games, and he is willing to make sort of left field decisions if he thinks it'll be best for them. And that was something that would make me a wee bit confident as a Ross County fan, that Cowie strike me as he's a problem solver. And I like those types of managers. You don't just see him looking blindly on the pitch, if you know what I mean, like that. He's proactive. He'll try and he'll try and make changes week to week.
Right, Tony, I think that'll do us. 90 minutes.
Aye.
Just like a football game. Or, well, like football games used to be.
Yeah. Before I don't know, woke.
Before football got post-progressive.
Absolutely. Until we had machines that stop us from playing if they go off because we're not able to look back in the past on them rather than just play the game, which is what happened at the Hibs St Mirren game the first day of the season. I was like, one day, you come back full of hope for a new season, and I'm sitting and I'm not able to watch a game of football because VAR's got switched off. And you're just like, we can't look into the past, so we can't play football anymore. Great.
Right, I think that'll do us, though.
Cheers.
Thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Tony, for joining me.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
And as I said earlier in the show, if you'd like to hear more, particularly about what the fuck is going on at Tynecastle, then that is available on the Patreon. If you're not interested in what happens at Tynecastle, there's lots of other great content there.
You might get a few Hibs fans starting to get a couple of quid. Listen to that one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That is patreon.com/Terrace Podcast. Right, that'll do us. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to you again soon. Goodbye.